Alright, welcome back. Back to another pickup. This is a Specialized HardRock Sport 1998, and yeah, we're going to do it up. Let's take a look at it. Just starting from the top, we got these Ritchie USA grips. They're a little bit tacky, so I think they kind of run their course, but pretty cool kind of grip section here. And there's some grip shifts on here. Not my favorite. Probably take these off. I'm not sure if this bike actually came with grip shifts or if someone upgraded them, but there's a few new parts on here. You can see also you got the front little mount. I'm sure there was probably like a box or a bag up front here. Little computer mount, little bell. Still works. These brake levers are, I think, maybe Tektro brake levers, but they seem pretty cool. Have a pretty cool shape to them. And then got this Specialized stem with a removable faceplate. Makes it easy to switch out bars. Got the Specialized logo at the front. Specialized flat bars as well. And down here is the 25.4 quill stem to a thread headset. Oversized here. Came in this cool yellow color. Been looking for a yellow bike for a while, but yeah, pretty hard to find. And then you can see it's got these oversized chromo forks, which have been suspension adjusted, so a little bit higher. And then you can also see that there's some V brakes on here. I'm not sure if someone upgraded these V brakes, old die comp ones. And then down here with the wheels, not sure what rims these are. I think these are just probably generic rims. And then I'm guessing these hubs will probably be Acera or Olivio hubs. And then here, just an old computer. Pretty scratched up, but I think it'll polish up pretty nicely. You can see here's the top tube. Pretty straight. Specialized logo on the down tube as well. Got this Club Roost bottle cage, old mountain bike brand. And then some old graphics here. Can't tell what that is. Alright, let's take a look. Looks like it's from Wellington I don't know where that is, but I can double check. Looks like it says on your bike. And then down here we got some pedals that don't really turn at all. Pretty rough here, and some Shimano cranks. But it's got the newer style with the 104 BCD 4 bolt. I think these were probably replaced. It looks like this was replaced at some point. The original front mech, Olivio rear mech, which is original. And then you can see the cassette here. Someone replaced the cassette, so I'm pretty sure this bike got a service or got a little bit of upgrade during its life. Probably upgrade the tires. You can see the Schwal marathon tires. I think they're 1.75. And then these teeth, I'd say kind of like a medium, not too bad. But yeah, the cassette looks pretty good. Alright, here's the rear hub. You can see RM40. Got this rear rack here, just a normal rack, and then a fender, big fat fender. Seems pretty good. And then you can see the back brakes are different to the front brakes. Not sure what these are. I think they're probably Tektro style brakes, but it looks like they got replaced at some time as well. And then the seat post here, original seat post, quick release clamp. The person who owned it probably put a bit of tape to get the right height that he wanted. And then just a BG comfort seat. Not sure what brand that is. Nice fat seat there. And then yeah, that's basically it. Some people already said it's kind of like a small size bike, but it's actually a medium with the longer top tube. But yeah, not sure what we're going to do with this bike yet. We're just going to rip it apart, clear the frame, and then go from there. Here I'm just taking the bike apart. But yeah, I've been trying to get a yellow frame for a while. It's kind of been an ongoing joke between me and a few of my viewers, mainly Jesus or Jesus, who been bugging me about getting one for a few years now. And yeah, it's kind of funny because once I got one, I kind of forgot the reason why I wanted one in the first place. But anyway, yeah, here it is. Pretty hyped on it. I think the yellow looks pretty iconic. It's also more of a deeper mustard yellow, so I think that usually looks a bit better as well. So I took off the rack, took off the fender, and taking up the chain now. The chain came up pretty easy. Here's a little tip: if you want to reuse your cable ends, you just squeeze with the pliers on the side and pull down, and it'll pop straight off. And sometimes you might need a sharpened spoke to open the cable end back up to reuse them. But yeah, lately I've just bought new ones. I bought a pack of new ones and they weren't too expensive, so I just chucked new ones on. But yeah, if you want to reuse them, you can. And then here, taking up the rear mag. Here's the tip again. Yeah, just squeeze and pull, comes straight off. And then here you might see that I can't get my Allen key with the bolt. If this ever happens to you, just shift it into the first gear, and it should be in a spot where your Allen key can undo it. You might ask me why I pulled the ends off if I'm not going to reuse them. It's because the cables look pretty fresh, so I was thinking I could save the cables either for this build or another build. But yeah, sometimes it just depends. If they're really old and rusty, I usually just cut them. Here, taking off the pedals while the cranks are still on the bike. This makes it way easier so you can get some more leverage. And yeah, just make sure you turn them the right way. I think also at some point these cranks must have been replaced. They look newer than the bike, but it has the newer 104 BCD. But yeah, we'll try taking them off. And then just undo the bolt, the securing bolt. And then what I like to do is put a little WD-40 in there just to help loosen it up. And then I wind the extractor tool all the way in, give it a half a turn to make sure it's fully seated, and then wind down the top bolt. Make sure you wind out the top bolt is fully unwound before you wind in the tool, otherwise you won't get a secure fit. But yeah, these popped off pretty easy, same with the other side, same process. I think this bolt was pretty tight. But yeah, usually you can tell if one crank comes off pretty easy, the other crank should come off fairly easy. Here I'm just unwinding the extractor tool all the way, and then yeah, just winding it in, giving it a half turn. Since I've done this, followed this process, I've never, knock on wood, stripped cranks yet, or stripped cranks since. But yeah, these came off nice. And then there's this little Pedro's tool that I got from Boot Bike. You can just basically screw it on and it helps you secure the tool to the bottom bracket so it doesn't slip off or anything. And then again with the WD-40 to help loosen it a bit. And then I just used a wrench at this point just to try to get it off. It was super tight, but eventually I got it. Sometimes if you need more force, you might need to use a breaker bar or something, and it just allows you to put a lot of pressure but go slow on it, and yeah, should be fine. That came out pretty easy. It was a plastic cup on that side, so you got to be careful not to crack it or anything, especially with older bikes. And then here, same with this side, drive side. You can see I'm using the chainstay here for leverage, and then if you can't use one hand, if one hand isn't strong enough, use two. Usually helps a bit. And then yeah, you just got to unwind a tool to take it off. But yeah, there it is. You can see it's pretty rusted up, pretty gunky in there, pretty gross. I'm going to clean that up. And then here, just taking off the brakes. Same trick again, squeeze and pull them off. Yeah, all the cables were in pretty good condition, so I'm wondering if the cables must have got replaced at some point, or had a service or something. Same with the back brake. I think the back brake, they're Shimano brakes, so they must have got replaced because they don't match the front. But yeah, it's interesting to pick up bikes and see what people replace, see what they've done to it or not done to it. But yeah, this one looks like it's been serviced and taken care of, at least every now and then. Take off some of the other accessories here. This is a bike computer. Usually has a magnet in there. But yeah, there was no battery. I opened it up. There was no battery for some reason. Again, with the brake cables and the brakes, these came off. You just had to pull them out. No issues there. and pulling the rest of the housing off. Getting rid of a bit of that tape. And then yeah, more accessories left on the bike. This is actually was super solid on there, so I think whatever attachment was on there must have been pretty big. But yeah, it's funny how sometimes when you pick up bikes, people just leave all these attachments on and they you know, kind of done its job, but then they're never going to use that accessory again, but they never take it off their bike, they just leave it on there. But yeah, I guess maybe some people don't have the tools or whatever. And then here, taking off these grips were pretty tacky already, so I ended up cutting them. You can, if you use a razor blade, will probably be a bit easier, but I just had these cable cutters close, so I decided to use them. And then yeah, same on the other side, pretty tacky. Yeah, actually this one didn't all come off in one piece, so you can see it's almost kind of like bubble gum on there, trying to get it off like glue tack or something. But yeah, it was real stuck. I need to put WD-40 and then use the paper towel so it sticks to the paper towel and then wipe it off. It took a little bit, it took way longer than I thought, but yeah, eventually it came off. And then here, taking off the grip shifts, they're just a bolt, a binding bolt that holds them on, but the cable's on the inside. I decided to leave the brake cables in for now until later. If I need them, I'll pop them out, but you got to unscrew the whole thing. So yeah, that's another reason why I don't like grip shifts. And then here, same on the other side, just take it off, keep the cable in there for now, wind it up so I don't have cables everywhere. And then next up, we're going to take these brake levers off. These brake levers, I think they're just no-name brake levers, but they look pretty solid for V-brakes, so I'll most likely reuse this. And then here's the easy way to take out the brake cables. You just kind of unwind it from the barrel, line it up, and then there's a little slot on the lever, you can pull it out, and then yeah, just pop it out just like that. Wind those up too, otherwise you're going to have cables flying everywhere. And then yeah, just undo the levers from the bottom. These are on pretty tight, and I've made this little lever tool from an old Pedro's tire lever, and you just shove it in there and then push down on it, and what it does is it opens up that little gap, and then you can just pop the levers off just like that. Yeah, it's pretty handy, I gotta say. And then a little bit of WD-40 on the bolts up the top, and then these came off. I think this specialized stem is pretty cool. It's a quill stem, but it has a removable faceplate. You don't really see that too often with quill stems, or the older ones anyway. And then here, undoing the quill. Sometimes I leave the bars on if it's if I know it's going to be tight, so you can get more leverage. But this one I was able to pull out. And yeah, getting there, almost everything's off, taking off the wheels. These are just quick release, so fairly easy to take these off. Yeah, I don't think you really even need a bike stand if you're just doing one bike or two bikes. Alright, so I found out that the seat post is kind of stuck a little bit, so what I'm going to do is just give it a spray and then try and twist it off with the seat on, so you get a little bit more leverage, and then we'll see how that goes. So yeah, if you're picking up a second-hand bike, always good to check that the seat post isn't stuck in there. Yeah, for some reason I didn't check this one. I think I just wanted to pick it up real quick. But yeah, it took a bit of effort, but I was lucky enough it popped off. Otherwise could be a real mission to get it off. Alright, so it turns out it wasn't that bad. I just gave it a quick wipe. I think there was like a little bit of corrosion, but nothing I can't clean up. So yeah, that was pretty lucky. Sometimes you never know. So basically got all the parts off. Looking pretty good. Everything's off the frame. Decided to keep the headset on for now, just while I clean the frame and polish the frame. I might take it off and redo the bearings, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, everything's off. Pretty happy with that. Alright, just giving the frame a clean. Here I'm just using a water and detergent spray that I just mixed up by myself, and it seems to work pretty well. Just give it a once over. Here I'm just wiping all the dirt off. If there's any tough stains or anything, you can try using a little bit of WD-40 to get it off. I'm going to show you WD-40, and then I'm going to show you a polish T-cut color restorer is what I use. Basically, it's like liquid sandpaper. I just have it in a different bottle because the other bottle cracked. But yeah, you basically just apply it on, and you can see some of that black stuff kind of being removed already, so that's pretty good. And then you just spray it with water and then just keep wiping it until it's shiny. But yeah, that works pretty well for me. If you have really tough stains, you might need to go over it a couple of times, and then you just got to be careful with decals and stuff, don't go too harsh, because basically what it's doing is what the cut is, it's cutting a layer, a very thin layer of the clear coat that has the black stuff on it. But yeah, I did the head tube and then the down tube. I tried to do each tube at once. This frame was looking pretty rough overall, but I think just giving it a once over, it's going to end up looking pretty good. It'll still keep most of the character, but just give it a little bit of fresh up. And yeah, as always, you know, I always just do what I can. You can see this fork shined up real well actually. But yeah, you just do what you can and freshens it up. Makes it pretty even all over the frame, and I think, yeah, in my opinion, looks pretty good like that. And then here, just doing the rest of the frame, you can see the chainstays and the BB was real dirty, so sometimes you have to give that a wash first. And then here with the chainstays or seat stays, doing the other side of the frame, yeah, just take your time, do each tube at once, and then you should get there in the end. Here I'm just taking some of the stickers off, just using a hairdryer. You just heat it up a little bit, and it's kind of a gamble whether they come off easy or they come off hard. Some of them, depending on what kind of adhesive is on there, yeah, it might come off easy, but other times, like this chainstay protector, it'll come off in flakes and it'll be super hard to get off. And what you need to do is, I like to use like a plastic lever or something like that, a scraper. Try to scrape all of it off, and then just use a little bit of solvent or cleaner. You can also use WD-40, and yeah, it should come off. The rest of the residue should come off. It should ideally melt the residue. But yeah, I think that came a long way, and then just cleaning up the rest. Alright, here's the frame, all cleaned up, looking pretty sweet. You can see I even cleaned up the bosses and everything. So yeah, this is basically ready to go. And next thing to do is clean out the headset. Taking apart the headset, you can see this little headset spacer had a little tab on it, but it was sheared already. It tends to happen a lot, used to go straight into the threads. That's why I don't really like them, but yeah, I try to keep taking this top cap off, but it took a little bit of moving it up and down, giving it a clean, moving up and down. You definitely don't want to rush this process because you don't want to wreck your threads. Just take your time and it should work out. You can see both parts completely good. The reason why it was hard to take off was because, yeah, the tab rotated into the threads and had metal that I had to kind of clear. But yeah, the top bearings came out pretty nicely, same with the fork, same with the bottom. So yeah, it's basically just a matter of cleaning it out now, just a little WD-40 and brush and stuff. That should do the job. So I posted this frame on my YouTube community page as well as on my Instagram, just to ask people what they would do with this frame if they had it. And it seemed like a lot of people were keen on a moto build. I think there was a few other options as well. But yeah, thanks everyone for the comments, gave me a few ideas. I decided to indeed go moto with this one. I think it just the frame itself was pretty beat up, pretty ratty, so make kind of a cool ratty moto style build, rat bike build. And yeah, sometimes it's easier for me to kind of let the frame or the parts I have available kind of dictate the build. It makes it a little bit smoother, and probably what people say when they say sometimes you gotta catch the wave that you get. That probably doesn't make sense to most people because I'm not explaining it clearly, but I think if you're a bike builder, you probably can understand it a little bit better. Just cleaning out these bearings. You can see the bearings pretty good. I just had this little tray from a can, and I just sprayed WD-40 in there and then just rotated it around and around. And what's good about it, it has a little channel for the dirt and stuff to fall into, and it doesn't waste too much WD-40 because you can just have it in there and you're not spraying it all the time. So the internals cleaned up pretty well, and you can see these cups, they were looking pretty rough, pretty patinaed, you would say, but I'm going with the whole kind of ratty style look, so it's a good excuse for me not to go full ham and fully restore it. Probably can't help myself eventually, but I decided to soak it in the vapor rust to see if I can clean up some of the rust on there. You can see this shell kind of just pops off, pretty rusty. Pop that in, and same with this, some rust at the top there. Pop that in as well. Leave that for 24 hours, and it should see if it does anything. The vapor rust is basically a rust remover. It helps get rid of rust, like the name says, and it's good for your hands, or maybe not good for your hands, but it's non-toxic. But yeah, it does a good job. I rate it. And it here, just cleaning up the race and the little washer. That's looking pretty good. Had a lot of grease on there, and I need to use a little spoke to get rid of it. Alright, it's been maybe a couple of days. Let's take a look. Not sure it's going to do anything. Oh yeah, actually did a lot of stuff. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to give this a clean and spray it with WD-40 to stop it from flash rusting. But that's pretty good. Here's the other one. Remember it had kind of rust around the top. Got rid of all that. Pretty cool. Alright, bearings looking fresh. And you can see after I dropped this in the vapor rust, it started to flake a little bit. I guess it started to take some of the paint off. So I decided to spray WD-40 just to give it a clean. And you can see all the paint basically came off. I kind of left it as it is like that. Some of the paint was still on there pretty good, but it kind of played in my head because the top race is now silver, but then the bottom cup is black. And I did think about popping out the bottom cup and making it silver, but I'm going to try to stick to this wrap build and go against my OCD a little bit to have a silver top race and a bottom black race. But yeah, I think once it comes together, it should look alright. Here, just greasing it up, top and bottom, and yeah, I just like to pack it up. It's better to have too much and you can just wipe it off, especially with bearings. Just push it in. Pay attention to which way the bearings face, and it should be goody. Here, this cover just pops on, just like that. You can see it's yeah, silver. Put a little bit more grease on the top, and then wind it down. Take your time, make sure it's straight, and if it doesn't go in, just wind it back a little bit and wind it forward again, and it should do it. And that's on. It's feeling pretty good. I just do it up pretty tight enough so it still spins, but it's not grinding on your bearings. And then what you're going to do is put this spacer back on. You can see here's where it's sheared. There used to be a little tab here, so because it's already sheared, I don't want it to damage my threads anymore. It's not going to sit in the tab spot, so I just filed it clean, just using a file and some sandpaper. And you just got to make sure it just clears the threads. Just pop it on and check. And yeah, it's good. Rotates without any friction. You should be good on this one. So yeah, initially why the tab was on there is to stop the bottom cover, the bottom nut from riding up. But yeah, I think the risk that it takes to damage your threads is a higher damage risk than having your headset loose. So sometimes, yeah, it's better just to file it off. I know I'm going to get some comments saying, no, don't do that, but yeah, make your own judgment call, I guess. And then here, yeah, you basically want to tighten it so the two nuts are tightened against each other and it still spins freely. Might take a little bit of effort to get it the right tension, but yeah, you'll get there. And then here, just giving it final clean, wiping all the grease off, and that's looking good. Here, cleaning out the bottom bracket, you can see that before the bottom bracket had so much dirt and gunk in there. I didn't even know how the bottom bracket gets this dirty. I don't know whether it was actually rust or just mud in there, but it was pretty gross either way. It took a little bit to clean it all out, just with a nylon brush first and then a wire brush. I had a few people, or one person roast me about my brushes being too old, but sometimes the old ones work a little bit better. And then here, this bottom bracket's pretty gross. Try to wipe all the grease off first, and then this one spun really well. It's a BN52, UN52, so a little bit higher tier than your base level bottom bracket. And I just wanted to save it just because it was spinning well. So why not run it, save a part. And it's only the outside that looks bad, but the inside is yeah, it's like butter. So I just clean it out best I can, and that's ready to go. Looking fresh. And then same with this cup. And then the spray is just detergent water spray again. Just clean it up best you can. There we go, all done, ready to be installed. Pretty rainy today, but I'm gonna clean up these wheels. They seem pretty good, they're pretty dirty, but the spokes are not rusted or anything, so they should clean up pretty well. And then we've got that new cassette on here. Gonna pop these reflectors off, and I got some new tires for them already, so it should be good. I got so many people telling me how they just rip these off and smash them, but if you don't want to put in tons of effort, you can just use a flathead screwdriver, or in my case I used a file. You just stick in there and turn it anti-clockwise and it'll pop straight off. And then here I'm just cleaning up the rims, just showing you a section because they were pretty dirty, and I basically just repeated it all the way around, just use a nylon brush. Pretty cool here, you can see clean side, not clean side. But yeah, I'm not sure what it was, but it's probably grease all the way around. I basically just sprayed it with detergent spray and scrubbed it with nylon brush on both sides, trying to get all that black stuff off. And then here, just using a little pressure sprayer, handheld pressure sprayer from Bunnings, just to clean it up, spray all the dirt off. And then here, if you have a little bit of corrosion or hard to get off areas on the rim, you can use a little bit of foil, and it should help freshen it up a little bit. So I did the same thing on both sides of the rim. Sometimes you don't need to do this foil bit, but this rim I think needed it, and it to freshen up a bit. But yeah, ended up working pretty well, I think. And then yeah, just give it a spray, get rid of all the residue, and that's looking pretty good. And then time to clean the hub here. A little bit of WD-40 and just a nylon brush again. Brush it all the way around the dirt. You can try to keep the WD-40 on there and just let it soak a little bit, and then just use detergent spray just to clean it up. You can see there's some rust here. You can use a wire brush to help get rid of the rust as well. You can see that's looking pretty fresh. And then the same with the other side. I've undecided whether I'm going to replace the bearings here or not, because it spins pretty decent. So yeah, we'll see how we go if I decide to do that. And then here, cleaning the inside of the hub. This is probably one of the hardest areas because of the spokes being in the way. But yeah, you just got to use the gaps all the way around the wheel, and eventually it should clean up pretty well. There we go, one wheel done, and then just repeat the same process on the other wheel. I did speed this up a lot so you don't have to double up on watching the same thing twice. But yeah, I definitely had to put some effort in to clean both wheels, but I think it's worth it at the end. You can see this one was pretty dirty as well. Alright, wheels looking pretty good. And then these are the tires I got. Some Rapid Robs 26.25. Just chuck them on. Alright, those are pretty easy to get on. And yeah, pretty stoked with how they turned out. Almost forgot one thing as well, just giving these skewers a quick freshen up. Yeah, you can see there's a little bit of rust here just on the inside. And these Shimano skewers are pretty heavy duty with their chrome plating, so you can just use a wire brush and brush all the rust off. Just a little bit of WD-40 again. It came off pretty easily, looks pretty good, pretty fresh. And then with the other one, it's the same deal, just a little bit of WD-40. For this one, I had to use a little bit of foil to kind of get on the inside. It was a little bit harder to get off the rust because I think it just pitted slightly, but you can kind of see how it looks after I got the rust off. But yeah, now the skewers are done, I can finally put the wheels on, see what it looks like on the frame. It's always exciting. These are 2.25, so they fit in pretty easily, not too close to the chainstays, still a bit of room there. I think this frame could probably fit 2.4 maybe, maxing out, depending on what tires you have. But yeah, I think the new tires and the freshed up wheels looks pretty good already. And then the cassette free hub sounds pretty good. Alright, I think it's looking pretty sick. Pretty stoked with it. And to put the bars on, just going to take a quick look, see what it looks like. Going to use one of these. This is called a stem converter. Allows you to run a normal stem on a threaded headset. So it basically just goes in there, kind of like a quill stem. There's two sizes. This one's 25.4. There's also 22.2. And this goes in like that. And then you tighten it, put the stem on top, and that's it. So yeah, before I put the stem on, I gotta make a shim for the bars. Alright, so I got this little steerer tube from the Crosswalk. It's a 1-inch steerer tube, but I'm gonna make a little shim out of it. I just have to cut two sides, and hopefully it will work. I remember last time it was, the steerer was pretty hard, so it was pretty hard to cut, but yeah, we'll see how we go. Got this old stem, and put it in here halfway. Just gonna saw down the pipe, see if it works. So yeah, I think the hard thing about this is probably not having a vise to hold it in, so I had to use this stem to hold it in and put it on a bucket. And yeah, you kind of just saw down, and starting the sawing was actually quite hard because it kept slipping and wouldn't really cut. But yeah, it took like a little bit just to get it going, but once you got it going, sawing it wasn't actually that bad. I just had to kind of be careful not to cut the stem, and you just go back and forth. I end up angling it on one side to help it cut a little bit easier, and then I had to keep moving the shim out of the stem so I can keep cutting down. And then I got up to a point where I couldn't move it down anymore, so I had to put it inside like this with the hacksaw in there, and then that allowed me to cut it all the way through. And basically I just cut it through until I was really close to the end on both sides, and then decided just to snap it off just like that. And then filing off the ends, filing off the sides, just making sure it didn't cut anything, didn't come to my bars. Sprayed WD-40, gave it a clean, a little sandpaper, tried to get rid of the rust was on there, and eventually I got it done. Super stoked on this. I don't think anyone else would spend this much time on a shim, but yeah, if I ordered one, it'd take like a week to arrive anyway, and I wanted to start getting the bike together. But yeah, you can see here it just clamps on. I put this old Eastern stem on these moto bars, and you can see here looking pretty good. Try to align the gap with the stem that you're going to use, and then the old Eastern logo top and bottom. Shout out Tim, Melbourne Cargo Bike, for the stem. And here, just putting the stem converter in, just grease it up, just like any normal quill stem. And this head tube is what you call oversized back in the day, or it's normal now, so it fits a 25.4 quill in there because of the thread headset. And here you can see now it's converter, you can put any 8-head stem on there, should fit pretty good. The stem clamp is 25.4 and the bars are 22.2. So I made a shim that fit 25.4 reduced down to 22.2. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. So yeah, after I got the bars to the position I wanted, I just wanted to align the gap. I just used the little tire lever there, or a little plastic lever, just to line up the gap so I can tighten it without any issues. And then yeah, just alternate between the bolts and tighten it up evenly as best you can, and pretty tight. I was worried about the 2 bolts holding and the shim slipping, but I put so much weight on the bars it wasn't moving anywhere, so pretty stoked with that. Alright, the bars are on. I think they look pretty sick. I'm trying out just a slightly longer stem here just to open up the bike a little bit. And then I had this stem flipped up the other way, but it was a little bit too much rise, so I decided to point it the other way. And then this other thing that you might be wondering, Tim faced it at some point, but yeah, still looks pretty cool. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I think the shim looks pretty sick, and the old Eastern logo on the front capsule. Alright, so these are the old parts that I'm going to reuse: seat posts, the cranks, the rear mech, and the levers. I was going to update the cranks and rear mech, but I decided to keep this, since everything's pretty ratty on it, keep it kind of like a rat bike style. And the things I'm upgrading are the brakes. I got these Avid Digit 3s. I just need to clean these up a bit, but they're basically brand new pads, so that'll be a nice fresh up. And I got these old STI shifters here. They look pretty cool with the big buttons on there. But yeah, not the best condition, but I think will match up with the rest of the parts here and also the bike. And then because I'm running the old stuff here, decided to see if the chain was okay to run, because it had the pre-new cassette. So I had a feeling that the chain might have been alright too. So I just have a chain checker tool here. Basically you know where it's at 0, and then it goes up from 25 to 5 to 0.75 to 1. And once it gets between 7.5 and 1, that's when you should replace. Here it says you should replace it between 0.5 and 0.1. But yeah, let's take a look. So it's on 0 at the moment. Basically what you want to do is just drop it in. So you can see that at 0 it doesn't, basically it just fits in there. Thing about this tool is you don't want to put too much pressure on the pins. And I'm just going to measure another spot just to be safe. You can measure a few spots here, but yeah, you can see that 0 and it falls in. I can move it to 0.25. See if it falls in anywhere. So just dropping it in here again. You can see 0.25 here. Doesn't really fit. And then try again in another spot. Yeah, so the chain I think is between 0 and 0.25. So I just need to drop in the vapor rust and should be good. So yeah, you might notice that it actually has more rust than when I took it off the bike. It's because I left it out on the balcony and it's been kind of super windy and rainy lately, so I should have packed it away. But the rust itself should be pretty light, so I should be able to just drop it in this vapor rust, just give it a stir, drop it in, and it should clean it up. And yeah, we should be good to go on that one after that. Here, just cleaning up all the other parts. You can see these brake pads are pretty much brand new, but some of the washers are kind of dirty. So I decided to, just take everything apart and give it a clean. Take the brake pads off because I'm not going to clean those. And I don't want to get any like grease and stuff on them. But yeah, basically take off all the bolts that you think are rusty. This rear Mac I think was pretty good, didn't have that much rust on it, so I'm just going to do it by hand. And then I'm going to drop all these bolts in the vapor rust as well. Here's the cranks, so yeah, pretty dirty, pretty filthy, a lot of grease on it, so again taking it apart so it's a bit easier to clean. Going to give all these parts a wash and try to freshen it up a bit. I think the condition of the chain rings are decent enough to keep running, so going to keep those. And then you might notice that these chain bolts, you can actually just take the plastic off. These are the bolts for the BB, and they were pretty rusty, so kept them with other bolts as well. And here packing everything up so I can go inside and give them a wash. So yeah, basically what the process is I try to get all the dirt and grease off first before I fill up the sink, just using detergent. And then after that, once this kind of has most of the dirt off, I just put it in the sink with dish detergent and a nylon brush and just go to town on it. Takes a little bit to brush all the stuff off. You might have to do it a couple of times, but once you do it, they'll be all clean. And then here's just the levers and the other rear Mac and stuff like that. Same process. Brush it all up. The big nylon brush really helps a lot. And yeah, you just gotta take your time and do it. After you wash it, it might have a thin layer of grease on there because grease is hard to get off depending on how dirty your parts are. So what I usually do after that is use a little bit of WD-40 and give all the parts a wipe down. And you can see that, they're looking super fresh now, super clean. Definitely cleaner than they were before. The brakes are looking good too, pretty happy with those. I think they'll match the bike, being black V-brakes. And then I use a little bit of foil on the rear Mac just to help it a little bit, and a wire brush as well. Alright, everything's pretty clean, looking pretty fresh. Still some dirt on there, but just cleaned it up best I could. And gonna put these bolts in the vapor rust, and that should take care of those. You can see this is the last of my vapor rust. You might remember put the chain in there, so I'm taking the chain out, gonna dry that off, clean it up, and then putting these bolts in. But yeah, the vapor rust lasted me, I got the 5-liter concentrated one, and it lasted me 2 years or something, so I think it's like 6 liters altogether once you make it. Well worth it for me. And then here, just cleaning the chain, I ended up spraying WD-40 on it just to stop it from flash rusting. And then I end up cleaning it again and using this muck-off spray. I don't even know what this does. I think it displaces water and it's meant to lubricate as well, so I thought it'd be good for this. My guess is it's WD-40 without the solvent, but I'm going to lube it up with black lube anyway, so see how it goes. How funny, no matter what I do, I always seem to forget a piece or two. There we go, gotta clean these up. As I'm cleaning this up, I realized I forgot the seat post and also the seat clamp and also the front Mac as well. I guess you were able to figure out when you start building your bike and you need that part on. You can see I just try to fix up the rust here, but as best I could with WD-40 and foil. It cleaned it up a little bit, still pretty rough, but I think, these will do the job. I think they're pretty cool. Alright, here's the bolts. Been soaking here for more than a few days, I think. I had some computer issues and the weather here's also been terrible. Probably something that you don't see behind the scenes. But good thing about vapor rust, you can basically leave it in there for a long time and it's not going to eat away your parts, akin to white vinegar. So yeah, you can see they all turn out pretty fresh. Sometimes the vapor rust can only do so much. You can see if it's heavily pitted, the bolts will kind of look like that, but you can clean them up with a little bit of WD-40 and they still look pretty cool with the pitting. But yeah, your vapor rust can't re-chrome the bolts, just in case you're wondering. But yeah, looking pretty good, pretty happy with them. I think they look pretty sick. And then just sprayed a little bit WD-40, let it soak to stop them from flash rusting, just in the sun there. And then here are the other bits I forgot. So the seat post clamp, and the little noodles for the brakes. And I'm just going to soak these in the vapor rust again. But yeah, it's funny with restorations or rebuilds, there's always something I tend to forget. But yeah, luckily my vapor rust isn't that big anyway, so I would have to soak it in multiple times. So it worked out. And then with this seat post, I'm going to give this a quick clean. Just taking the tape off here, not too much to it. But this post has been pretty hammered as well. Some scratches on there, but it'll fit the kind of rat bike theme of this bike. And I just gave it a quick sand of 600 wet and dry just to take all the burrs off. It's also 30.4 if people are wondering. You can see on the top here it has some vice marks or something. I don't know, maybe someone tried to pull it out at some point. It was too tight, but again, just filing these off, giving it a once over, so just if your hand goes on it or anything, you won't cut yourself. Just give it a nice little finish. And then that's looking good, ready to go on. And then I had a problem with the seat post where you can see it was pretty stiff, it won't go in, but the area near the keyhole was a little bit stiff. And I think I showed this in a previous video, but it happens to a lot of bikes. And what you want to do is just try to open it up again. I'm just using the tool that I used to take off the fork crown on the Marzocchis. It's a great fit, and you just need to give it a slight bend either way. It's just soft aluminum, so it won't damage the parts or anything. You just give it a little bit bend each way, and that should free up the inside of the keyhole. Just work it all the way down. Yeah, I think this happens because a lot of people clamp their seat posts up too tight, and then it kind of stays like that. But you can see now, give it a quick sand, now it's sliding in pretty well without grease. And then once I grease it up, it should be super sweet. And that's looking good as well. Give it a little bit more sand and ready to go. Alright, just pulling these other bits of the vapor rust. You can see, yeah, my vapor rust still works, so I was pretty stoked on that. I thought it stopped working for a little while, but yeah, it works really good. You can see all the rust is kind of off, and gave the parts a clean as well, so just give it a rinse off. And then yeah, just same process, a little bit of WD-40. Yeah, you can reuse the vapor rust too, so I usually clean it out after a few times, just put it through like a coffee filter or something. And then here, just putting the seat post back together. That's looking pretty fresh. And then here I got this SDG Bel Air. I think this is like a 2000s seat, which I think goes well with the bike. It's all black, and just giving it a quick clean. It's not in brand new condition, but I think it suits the bike as well. Just gave it a little clean with detergent water spray, and then you can also use some type of moisturizer to put on top, and it'll create a light seal over it. I think I just use Nevada or Nivea or whatever it is called. Just whatever I had in the house. And yeah, gives it a shine, makes it look fresh, puts a little bit of moisture back into the saddle. And then here, just putting on the seat post clamp. I like to put the clamp so it's parallel with the top tube. But yeah, I think that looks best. But I'm sure other people like to have it pointing up or down, stuff like that. And then here, putting in the seat post, a little bit of grease this time. And yeah, it should slide in pretty perfect. There we go, perfect fit. I usually just put it into the line, the minimum height line for now, just to see how it is, and then I just adjust it depending on my height. Usually I can tell by standing next to the bike of how high I need the seat post, And yeah, you won't really know till you go for a ride, but you can kind of just estimate. And then just turning a little clamp on the side, putting on the seat. Here I have it pretty forward, but I think that that works well for this bike. And then I just try to have the top level with the ground, horizontal with the ground. Sometimes I tilt it a little bit back to have it on my sit bones a little bit, but yeah, it's up to personal preference too. Putting on the rear mac here, you can see it works, springs back. And then here, chucking on the BB, make sure you grease it up. You can, if you remember, it was pretty rusted, or there was a lot of rust in here, so you can just put extra grease in there, and this will help protect it from rusting anymore or collecting rust in the future. And then yeah, just wind it in by hand. Make sure the threads are lined up, make sure you're turning it the right way. And then here I thought I could add a little bit more grease, so I just unwound it a little bit and just put a little bit more just to create a seal around the BB, just to make sure no water gets in. And then yeah, nice and tight. Give it a clean, and that side's done. And then here, same with the other side, same with the plastic one. Just make sure you grease it up. I also grease it up on the inside. I basically put grease wherever there was rust, just to help protect it a little bit. Just yeah, protect it from any moisture or water that could get in. And then yeah, just wind it on. This one was a little bit tighter than the other side, but yeah, if you just go slow, it should go in. And then you just do it tight until it kind of stops naturally, not super tight, just want to snug. Yeah, with this plastic one, you don't want to keep going, otherwise you'll crack it. And that's all good to go. Little grease on the tapers. I know some people don't like to do this, but if you actually, if you take apart a lot of bikes, you'll know the reason why. But yeah, just a thin layer goes a long way. And then yeah, put on here. And then screw the bolt on. Sometimes I put a little bit of grease just on the bolt as well, the bolt threads. You can see this thing just snaps in. But yeah, it's really just to protect it, make it nice and snug there too. And then here, when you're winding down the crank, you'll feel there's a natural point where the crank stops, and that's kind of when you stop, tighten it any further. You don't want to go ham on it. Obviously you want them on there pretty snug, but yeah, just don't go ham. And then here, just putting the chain rings on the crank, and then yeah, with the bolts, you just do them up in kind of a star pattern. There is a little tab on the chain rings where it tells you where it faces on behind the crank arm. It's just a little indent. Look out for that if you want to line up all your rings. But yeah, it shouldn't really matter too much if you get it wrong. There's only a few positions. And then here, same thing again, putting the drive side crank on, a little bit of grease. I just put grease on and then wipe all of it off, so you just have a thin layer. And then snap on the bolt, put on the crank, make sure it's the opposite of what you did on the other side, and then yeah, just wind on the bolt. Same thing, want it pretty snug, but don't force it. There we go, spinning sweet. Putting on the brakes here. Yeah, I think these brakes are pretty cool, just Avid Digit 3s. They're not, they're not top end or whatever, but I think they match the bike, and being black, they look pretty good, and the front and back also match. So yeah, kind of helps my OCD a little bit. And then yeah, basically there's a little wire that aligns with 3 holes. I just put in the middle hole when you put it on, and that should give you just a standard spring tension. You can adjust it accordingly, but I always start off with the middle and then see how I go. And then yeah, just wind these on, put the bolts in, not too much to it. You just got to make sure they kind of spring back a little bit away from the wheel after you put it on. You can see mine were pretty loose. If they're too loose, you can try tightening this bolt on the side, and what that does is it pushes kind of the spindle to give the spring a little bit more tension. And then same with the other side here. If you're still not getting enough spring tension, what you can do is actually just unhook the metal wire and just bend it out more manually. But yeah, be careful when you do this, don't snap it or anything. And then when I was putting on the front brake, on the right side here that I'm working on right now, you can see it's not turning at all. And I was like, oh, what's going on? Must be an issue. So I decided to take it off and see if I could free it up a bit. So I just used WD-40, try to get it in the gap, and I think it was just all gunked up from being super old and just been hanging around. And then I ended up just chucking it back on the bike and using the bike as a lever just to help move it. And then I just moved it back and forth, and then by that time I think the WD-40 kind of worked its way in and kind of cleared out some of the debris. And then yeah, you can see it's moving sweet now. So yeah, if you find that happens on old brakes, yeah, you might still be able to save them just with the bit of WD-40. And yeah, now they're working sweet, I can chuck it back on again. And then yeah, just repeat the process, put the grease back on and put the brake on, put the bolt on. Yeah, sometimes you think, just chuck on the brakes, it should be pretty easy because I got these brakes secondhand. But yeah, sometimes there's always an issue that you got to fix. So yeah, that's looking sweet. You can add a little bit more tension again here for the spring back. This one's working pretty well after I gave it a little bit of a service, I guess, with the WD-40. And then the other side, I needed to bend the wire a little bit out to get a little bit more spring tension. And then here, putting on these levers or putting on the shifters, I realized they didn't really fit. Alright, you can see I just put this on here, but with these old school levers, you can see they always hit on this point in the clamp. So I'm going to file them off just so I can get a better fit and it won't scratch the bars as much. Yeah, it's funny, always with these old old clamps, they kind of just clamp in metal and yeah, ends up like scratching them straight away. But yeah, if you give them a quick file, it will stop it a little bit. But basically what you need to do is just file those corners off and then just keep testing it back and forth. You can see it's pretty smooth now. So what I'll do is I'll test it again and hopefully that works. You can see it's still having trouble. It goes on, but yeah, still pretty tight. Right on that edge, you can see a little bit of space. So back to the filing board, just filing again till it's smooth. Another tip is use your finger to rub on the inside. If you feel a bump or if you feel a scratch, it's basically gonna be hard to put on your bars. But yeah, once it's smooth on your finger, it usually should go on. But yeah, that's basically it. Put that on. Yeah, I think just bad design in general, probably just an easy way for them to weld them on. And then putting on these levers again, using a little bike tire lever just to open it up. That's looking good. Putting the barrel adjusters on here. I just do it all the way in for now. With all the Rimac, everything that I put on the bike, I do all the barrel adjusters with the shifters and everything. I wind them all the way in, just because when I go to measure my cables, it's going to affect your cable length. You might not think, you might not affect it that much because it's only just like 5 mil or whatever, but yeah, it makes a difference. Here it is. I think it looks pretty cool, kind of like an F1 cockpit with the buttons on the side. Yeah, I think it looks pretty sick. The shifters are both press forward versus press forward, press back on the other one, but yeah, just a little detail. And then here, just showing you how the brake pads go on, just be aware of the spacers. I put thin spacers on the bottom just to test it out. Sometimes you can put the fat one on the bottom, but yeah, it depends on your brakes. And then there's a little arrow on the top of the brake pad to show you which way the wheel direction goes. Sometimes there's a letter like right and left. So if you're standing over the bike facing forward, obviously the right side is the right side and the left side is the left side. And then here the thin spacers seems to work out pretty nicely. These brake pads are also pretty fat, so that might have helped with the thin spacer. But yeah, if it doesn't work for you, use the fat spacer on the inside. And then just aligning the brake pads up for now, just flush to the rim. I can always adjust these a bit later, but these are looking good. You can see the arrows for the wheel direction. And then don't forget these little bolts for the brake. So yeah, this is basically getting the last to all the bits that I've evapor rust. But yeah, just chuck it on. And then here, obviously forgetting one thing again, is the front mech when I was building the bike. I tried to use this old 97, Markov 97, to see if it's any different from WD-40. And you can see it kind of takes a little bit of the rust off as well. I don't know if it's too much different to WD-40, but I think it just has maybe slightly, I think it has one chemical less than WD-40. I forgot what it is, but it seems to work pretty well. Well, yeah, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, sometimes I've been using WD-40 so long I had this lying around. I think, yeah, Joel, shout out Joel. Joel gave me a can, and I've been meaning to use it for certain stuff. But yeah, basically it displaces water and it frees up moving parts. So yeah, I decided to use it on my parts after I put it on. And then here with the front mech, you can see you just want to align to the chainring. You can see the gap is pretty big here. I think standard it's like 3 to 5 mil, but I wanted mine a little bit closer. So I just moved it in a little bit closer, and you just got to spin your chainring around to make sure it doesn't hit the guard. But yeah, if you have a biopace chainring and you forget to do this, you might have to readjust. And then here, when I'm measuring out the cables, don't forget to put your brakes in, push your brakes in like that, and then use your noodle as well. Because yeah, if you don't, your cabling will be a bit longer than usual. But here, yeah, you can see I just switched for the right brake noodle. You can see the length here. But then if I just drop it out, it's going to be much longer. What you want, you kind of want it kind of halfway between clamped and where your brake would naturally sit, and that should be the right length. But yeah, sometimes that if you're building a bike for the first time, that can trip you up. You might measure all your cables and wonder why when you go to put it on that they're not long enough, the housing. And then same with the rear mech. Yeah, if you stretch it out, you can see it'll be a little bit longer than if it was just in the resting position. And then here, yeah, cutting all the cables. Just see which way fits best for you. Turn the wheel if you need to. Make sure there's enough free movement. Alright, here it is, all done. I did it a little bit longer than usual. Just to give it some room in case people want to customize the front end. But yeah, that's it. You can also see here, just gotta clean these up. You can either poke an old spoke through, sharpened spoke, and file it down, or you can just retrim it a little bit. Sometimes that works as well. Yeah, usually I skip this part, but I just want to show you guys how it's done. So sometimes you just trim it off a little bit like that, and then I just use this tool from Boot Bike, just a little seal pick tool. You can use a spoke or whatever if you don't have one, and then just file it. And then it's the it's the same for the rest. It doesn't, yeah, it's it's not that interesting, but yeah, it's got to be done. So that's how it goes. All right, just about to put the brakes on, and there's a couple of things you can do. You can see when I squeeze on this, it's gonna pop it out a bit. So what I'm gonna do is just unhook it, just like that. And you can see it's free moving now. Just push it against the rim. Just gonna freestyle it for now. I know the pads aren't fully aligned, but they're pretty close enough. And then same with this side. Just push it on here. So that's kind of where we want to set our brakes. And then we just come up the front here. For this right brake, we're gonna unwind this about 7 times. Usually I show like maybe like 4 or 5 threads. Don't have to really count. So what we're going to do is just lace it up so it's flat against the rim. The brake pads are flat against the rim. And then once it's laced up, we're going to wind this back in and it'll move the brake pads back out away from the rim, and then you can adjust from there. Just putting on the cables here. What I like to do is put a little drop of chain lube. It's waterproof silicone chain lube, and you just need a drop, and it makes it slide pretty well on the inside. You don't have to do it. Some people don't do it, but I like to do it just to make the cables run a little bit better. And then here, after you put it against the pads, you just put it back on, wind it back in, and then it should move your brake pads away. And then here, just cutting the cable, and then give it a spin, make sure it's clearing the pads. If it's not clearing the pads, or you get some funky noises or whatever, you just got to readjust your brake pads a little bit. If it's leaning to one side, you can use that bolt on the side to put a little bit more pressure. And yeah, if there's not enough pressure, you can pull out the spring and just bend it a little bit. But yeah, did the back, and then now just doing the front. Always the cabling is the last thing. Makes the bike feel complete, like it's getting there, it's rideable. But yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit. You can see that's working pretty sweet. Alright, so I just noticed these washers right here. There's actually 2 sides to them. Here I just fixed this one. I just wound it out and put it back in. But you can see how it has a little divot here. This goes next to the barrel. Just a little thing, but thought I'd share it. Alright, all fixed. Alright, I'm just about to set the limit screws here, and what you want to do is pull this down a little bit just to make sure these cogs are aligned and they're not going too far in or too far out. You can see this one's pretty set up to be pretty perfect already. And then when I push it here, it seems like it's I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's probably a fraction further out than I want it to be. So I'm gonna unwind this anti-clockwise, and it'll give the derailleur a little bit more room to kind of align with the biggest cog. I'm guessing probably just half a turn will do it. And yeah, there we go. That's pretty perfect. And it's basically the same thing as the front mech. The front mech doesn't matter as much because you can, it has more wiggle room. But basically what you want to do is you just want there to be enough chain space to go through here and reach the rear cog there on your lowest gear. And then you want it to be pushed out so there's enough room for a chain, just about like that. And then you can adjust, these are the screws, this is for the closer side to the frame, and then this is for the furthest out this way. But sometimes this is easier to adjust once you get the chain on, because you can kind of wind it and you can hear the chain if it's sliding. If it's sliding on either side, you just wind it out a little bit each way until there's no sound. Alright, you might be putting your cable through the shifter and there's no hole to put it through. You just gotta release the tension from your shifter, shift it to your highest gear, and then there we go. Alright, I have a feeling I might be able to save these cables, but what I need to do is just take this off. You can see these are kind of fully closed, there's no easy way to take them out. What you gotta do is just open them up. Yeah, it's just 2 screws, you gotta unscrew it, but yeah, it's a little bit of a pain. Seeing the other versions of the shifters, you don't have to do anything, you can just unpop the cable. But yeah, it's a little bit of a pain. That's why I don't really like grip shifts. But yeah, this is how you take it out if you ever come across them and you want to throw them off your bike. And then yeah, I just put the covers back on just so I don't lose anything. And then it's the same with the other one. The other one is just red on the internal. It's not too much different. There's still a cable that kind of hooks in there. But yeah, sometimes you need a screwdriver or something to pop it out. It can be a little bit tricky. You can push up against the cable to kind of help force it out. And then yeah, it should come out. So there we go. You can reuse these cables. These cables are looking pretty good. Still silver and pretty long. So I'm gonna see if I can reuse them. And then here, just lacing up the gear cables. Same thing, a little bit of silicone lube. And don't forget to put it through the little adapter on the bottom of the bottom bracket. Just make sure it slides through the little guide. And then here you can see it's working. And then same thing with the front, just hook up the front. The front cable ended up being not long enough, so I had to use a different cable. But yeah, was able to reuse one of them, which is good. And you can see that's working as well. Give that a snip. Alright, time to chuck on the chain. And yeah, just putting it through. I put the derailleur front mech on the smallest ring, and then what you want to do is just kind of wind it through and have your chain sit on the inside the BB. And then just to help me a little bit, just to get an extra hand, I just use an old tube to tie up the derailleur to get a little bit more tension, and then just use my old chain breaker just to push it in, and then just make sure there's no kinks in your chain after you put it on. If there is a kink, just loosen the bolt a little bit, and then it should free that up. But yeah, this is running sweet now. Pretty cool. So yeah, I was able to reuse the chain as well. You can, if you remember, it's probably been a while, but I measured it and it was within pitch, so it's pretty good condition. So yeah, for this bike, it was I just tried to reuse everything I could, which is I think just to show other people, like, if you don't always have to get new stuff, but yeah, it depends on your bike as well, the bike you pick up and the condition of the parts. Sometimes you get lucky and a lot of the parts can be reused, and yeah, kind of just guess keep an eye out when you're looking to pick up an old bike. And then here, just putting on the cable ends, I just do one clamp in the middle, just make sure it doesn't pull off anything, just a light tug. And then here, same with the front mech. Alright, here I'm just indexing the gears. You can see when it's going up, but it's not super smooth. So when you're doing this, you just gotta listen and kind of feel to see how the gears are shifting. Sometimes you might have it pretty close, but it's not shifting 100%, and it needs a little adjustment. 90% of the time it will be your cable just needs slightly more tension, whether it got loose over time or it just wasn't set up properly. But if your limit screws are set up properly, yeah, 90% of the time you just need to put a little bit more tension on the cable. So yeah, you can see here it's not quite shifting as much as I want it to, and it's making noise between the first and second cog, having a little bit of trouble stepping up. So what you do is you just unwind the barrel adjuster a couple of times anti-clockwise, and then that will put more tension on the cable. You can see I had to just do it a couple of times, just do it and listen. It's harder when it's closer, I think. When it's way off, it's easy to adjust. But I think this was pretty close, so I just adjusted it a little bit by little. And then, yeah, once you feel the gear shifting up super smoothly, that's when it's good. And then with the front, you just set it on the lowest gear on the back and lowest gear on the front. First I want to set this cage, the limit screw. You can see it's pretty far away from the chain on the top side. And what we want to do is just screw the limit bolts so the cage will be a bit tighter in. You want it as close as it can be to the chain without it making noise. So the inside's done now, so we're going to set the outside limit, basically change to your high ski on the rear and high ski on the front. You can see it's scraping here on the far side of derailleur, so we need to move it out a bit. One of the issues you may have when you're winding the screw, and if it's not pushing out, is because there isn't enough tension on the cable. And what you need to do is just kind of pull on the cable. You can see me just on the top right hand side, I'm pulling the cable just to see where the limit is, and that will help you kind of get the right adjustment. After you do it to where you want it, you have to retighten the cable. Yeah, sometimes it's funny, you think you set it up already before without the chain in, but then gotta end up readjusting it anyway. But yeah, sometimes that happens. Just give it a tighten. As long as you know what to do, it's a pretty easy fix. You can see here it's all set, making no noise, but pretty tight to the chain. So yeah, what you want to do is just cycle through all the gears to make sure it's not making any noises. Remember not to cross chain. The middle chain ring should probably reach the middle gears of the cassette, and then the lowest gear should reach 7 to 2, and then the highest should reach 1 to 6, something around there. But yeah, this is looking pretty sweet, going through pretty snappy, switching it through all the gears and no issues here. Alright, got these old school Walgo pedals, pretty sick shape I think, and just gonna chuck them on. Alright, that's looking pretty sweet. Alright, just got these, I think these are jet black grips. Chuck these on. Just like that, and that was the last thing. Here's the final bike. Alright, if you made it this far, congratulations. This has been a long video. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked it. And yeah, the bike's super sick, ride's really fun, super cruisy, bars up higher, so it's yeah, mad comfy and fun to whip around on. Shout out to people who donated to this build: David, Rich, Jared, and Chris. I appreciate the support. Thank you people who bought shirts, stickers, and all that stuff as well. Appreciate that, and hope you liked it. Let me know what you think, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.